Welcome to The Uncommon Truth. Today we have guest host Criag Parry joining us from Adelaide, Australia to discuss and find the uncommon truth about high performance. Criag, a good friend of mine over the last several years, was born and raised in Geraldton, West Australia. He is and always was a great athlete, and he's played Aussie rules football. Criag represented West and Southern Australia states on 6 occasions in his 17-year career. Criag was drafted to Adelaide at 18 years of age from his home state of Perth. His career spanned 17 years and he played in over 250 games. He completed his career with the Eagles, winning an SANFL premiership and was awarded the Jack Oatley Medal for being best on the ground and achieved his lifelong athletic dreams. Criag then transitioned into a successful career with his brother Scott, who founded their finance company, Crown Money. Criag is focused now on growing Crown Money, a national leading mortgage brokerage. Criag and his brother are committed to helping empower people on how to pay off their mortgages and debt quickly and empower them to build their financial wealth and freedom. Criag's a high performer in all he does and is focused on living his ideal form of life every day. He's happily married to his wife and raising his 1-year-old daughter. Welcome, Criag.
Thank you, Heath. Thanks for having me. It's really a pleasure to be on here, even all the way from Australia. Not sunny. I can't say sunny Australia because we're just about to hit winter.
Nice. Well, as usual, we have our co-host Bob Embry with us as well, and I'll just let you know the questions that we're going to talk about today. First one is going to be, what are the most important character attributes of high-performing people? That could be an athlete, a business person, a parent, just all of us. What makes us high performers? 2, why is high performance difficult and almost impossible to control on a consistent basis? 3, how important are our daily rituals? And then we'll share, each of us, what some of our rituals are that we feel help us in our quest to be high performers. So let's open this up. Criag, what would you feel are the most important character attributes of a high performer?
This is an interesting question, Heath, and I've had some time to think about this, and it's actually changed now to become a father, believe it or not. So in my sporting days, and my number one focus was purely just sport and being as athletic as possible. Now that I've had a little girl and I've retired from sport, those characteristics are changing a little bit. But I want to take you back to my sporting days and when I was at my peak of my career with football in the AFL in Australia. I think the most important thing that an attribute from my point of view was courage. And certainly when you were obviously growing up and a little boy and you're sort of starting to get into the Australian League in AFL, certainly courage plays a huge part in relation to that. You're a young boy, you're scared, you're timid, you're going up against these men in that football when you first come in. So courage was certainly something that I had to hold within myself and make sure that I was obviously leading the way, even though I was obviously only 16 at the time. So that was the most important thing. Courage was big. You probably see on the back of the screen there, determination. There's a big photo that I keep in my office at all times that actually states, determination today leads to success tomorrow, and I'm a big believer of that. So the most important thing that my dad instilled in me as a child was determination, and he had a lot of determination. He was an Ironman, which he did passionately, and you do need a lot of determination from that. So I learned that trait from my father, and determination is certainly another trait that I would hold in high regard to be a high performance athlete. And the next one is persistence, because I think, growing up as a kid, you're always going to be challenged. There's going to be hurdles in place, and especially through your AFL career, you talk about injuries, and, the amount of injuries I had was huge throughout my career. But, the persistence and the resilience, to continue to get back up, keep training, get your body to I guess, the stage where it can perform on a weekly basis, week in, week out. So I would say persistence would be my third one, and they would be certainly my top three of a high performance athlete.
Wow, that's so clear and concise. That's one thing I always love about you, Craig. Focused. What do you think, Bob?
Greg, excellent. You had courage and persistence. And what was the third thing? Courage, persistence, and determination. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. That, just for our listeners, Heath, there's a huge amount of research done on character skills and virtues. And I know that there's a list of about 40 to 50 different character skills and an equal number of virtues as well. So a little less than 100 character skills and virtues that people should know about. So if you're looking at self-leadership or becoming good at anything, the three that were just mentioned by Craig are top of the list if you want to be a high performer in any way, shape, or form. So studying character and studying virtues is a really good way to get a grasp on actually your current reality. So that's what I'd like to contribute, talking about performances. Character is very important, virtue is very important. But I think there's an old adage that says it's your dreams and goals plus action equals success, or perhaps performance in this case. But I think often we miss out that the picture of reality. So in my head, it's dreams plus reality plus action equals success. And so to move forward from any position, if let's say you want to move forward in your financial life, or move forward with your spouse, or move forward with your 1-year-old turning it quickly into a 2-year-old, right, Craig? It's like you have dreams and goals, right? But then there's the reality of the situation that you're in, then taking some actual pragmatic action that goes along with that, that's going to equal your success. So my kids, which are just about the same age as yours, Craig, I think they're 35, 34, because of excellent planning, 21. I do that exact same thing certainly on a weekly basis. If I want to have a maximum performance with my children, then I think out, geez, what are some goals and objectives? What are some dreams that I have with them? What's the current reality of our relationships? What action can I take intentionally? And thus the performance of that relationship moves forward.
Yeah, well said, Bob. Well said. A statement that I've always used, Bob, and you've heard me, which goes right along the lines with the three aspects that you just spoke to, is that your reality equals your dreams acted upon. And I totally believe that statement. The thing that I would add to the three that you spoke to, Craig, which I believe all three of those are critical key success factors, is on top of determination is self-discipline. And I think in a lot of our journey, when I look at the times when I stumbled, let's just say, from where I was going, it's when I allowed my self-discipline to waver. You can be determined on the goal, but when that determination falters in a slump or during a trial or unfortunate circumstances, it's that self-discipline that will get us through our slumps quicker or not. They become prolonged when we're undisciplined. And that's the only thing that I would add to it. I think that, for all of the people that I've had the fortune to meet that are high performers, those traits that we've all just discussed are really it. And it really comes back to being really clear on their focus, that goal. So Craig, speak to us just a little bit on that focus you had for your lifelong goal to be awarded such an honor as being best on the ground at a professional level. That's not a small thing to get.
Yeah, thanks. Look, I mean, how long the season's going to be able to actually get to a grand final, let alone be best on ground. I mean, I'd take the grand final, the Premiership Cup any day of the week over best on ground, but it's a great accolade to go with that. But the focus wasn't just, that one game. It was the whole year. It was the build up. It was the work that you put in, the effort, the sacrifice, the blood, sweat, and tears to get me to that stage that I was able to perform on the day at that level. But certainly, that focus, that determination and dedication, was seen, back in November, 1 year ago when we started preseason for that particular year. So, yeah, and I do like what you were talking about, Heath, in relation to, I guess, the self-discipline and also self-reflection is really important, because, everyone's going to make mistakes, and you're all going to, be kicked down at some point in time. It's what you do at that point in time as to, I guess, where your career or what the next avenue is you're going to take.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. That's a really good point. I think one of the things that we forget about a lot of the time, there's quite a different dynamic when we're working in a team versus working individually. As we all are entrepreneurs and we're all business owners, we have to learn that. I know when I started out in business, I was so focused on my goals that I quite often would overpower other people around me instead of asking the question of what they thought or what they felt would be the right contribution to a circumstance. And that's why there's no I in team. And I would say I lost some really good people and some lessons that I had to learn the hard way, where if I was willing to just ask some questions and have that moment to self-reflect, as you just said, on something, that I could gain the synergy of two people or three people or the group's collective energy and knowledge, and a host of common people could do uncommon things. And that, I think, is that's the big thing that you just really spoke about. Why the Premiership Cup is actually more important than the individual, because if you're not in the game for the Premiership with your teammates, you don't get the chance to win that individual accolade. It really is we before me.
Yeah, I totally agree, Heath. And, as I said, for me to win that best on ground, it didn't just take me, it took a team. There's people out there making me look good, of course. And you've got to have, surround yourself with great players. And that's what and essentially our team was that, one cohesive group. And, essentially my teammates just made me look good on the day.
Well said. Bob, what do you think? I'm going to add a little question here into this because it's part of this question, but aren't we really sort of talking about servant leadership in essence, in this whole aspect of being a high performer? It's really about leadership, whether it's on the field, in the office, in our family. It's focusing on an objective, but trying to bring people in to that outcome, that they feel part of that their dream is being achieved through it, and that we can serve them in that outcome. What do you think?
Really good comments, gentlemen. Excellent comments. We'll be using the analogy of sports, but Heath, you nailed it right there by talking about it's in every aspect of our lives. If we want to win in every aspect of our lives, in finances, in our families, in our relationships with our spouse, with our children, with so many of with our friends, our friendships as well, it is about servant leadership. It is about not only you maximizing your performance, but you helping others to maximize their performance. And that's a real key to success in life, is knowing, first, putting people around you that have that same like mindset, and second, really articulating, being able to reflect on what your skills are and reflect on what the skills of the people who you're working with or living with around you and then helping everybody move to that next level, helping everybody perform at their best. So that's not only how you win championships, that's how you build a family. That's how you build a business.
I agree. Well said, Bob.
Yeah, well said. That's a great segue into our second question for the day, actually. And that is, gentlemen, why is high performance difficult? And sometimes it seems almost impossible to control on a consistent basis. What are those things that can help us really be consistent in our performance and really drive high performance? Go ahead there, Craig.
Yeah, thanks, Heath. Another great question, and it had me pondering last night. A lot of time, when you're at a professional level like that, I thought golf would be a great sport to take up, and thinking I'm quite athletic and just could take the game of golf up quite easily. I soon found out very quickly that that wasn't the case, and I think what that leads me into, back to the question that I was trying to answer with high performance difficulty, is if everyone, not everyone thinks that they can perform at the highest level, and that's the biggest problem, I think, in most people's lives. Even though that they don't think they can get there, their mindset is along those lines. So for me, and what kept me so strong throughout, my career and also in business, is always thinking that I'm the best. As soon as you're going to have hurdles and challenges along the way, that's going to kick you when you, again, having that mindset to ensure that you always think you're the best, you always think you're going to be the best and the leader in anything that you do. That's going to obviously put you in a situation, where you're going to deal with, being a high performer, all the difficulties that come with that. The self-discipline, we've talked about the hard work. I think, and if I go back to it, I think hard work outdoes talent.
Oh, yeah. That we all know.
We've all seen so many talented people, but how much of their career did they potentially waste just thinking they could actually just roll up and not do the work? So I think there's probably 1 or 2% of high performers out there in the world, if you really sort of break it down. If you study their mindset, they always think they want to be, or they always are the best. So that is, I guess, the most important thing that I think we can all take out of this, is that if your mindset is as strong as it should be to say, hey, I am the best at what I am, you'll certainly go a long way to being, I guess, one of those top performer in your category.
I think the quote is, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's how it goes. That's a great quote, Craig. Love that comment. That's a good comment.
Thanks.
Bob, how about you?
Just kind of reflecting on what Craig was talking about, and because I'm much older than both you gentlemen, like exceptionally old compared to you guys, I will give you an aged person's perspective here. That when I was in business at 25, I was a peak performer. I was compared to my peers. But looking back on it, 10 years later, I wasn't that good. I wasn't that good. I was so much better 10 years. And 10 years after that, I was so much better. So at different stages in your life, you're striving to be the best. You're striving, but maybe it's not the best. Maybe it is in sports. But I was always striving to be my best, do my best on the golf course, especially when you're golfing with Heath, because it'll be very depressing if you're going head to head with him, right? So all I want to do is go out playing golf and be in flow. That would be my goal playing golf with Heath, is to be in flow in a golf game, to try to be my best, perform at my best, but not only just score-wise and physically. I would want to be mentally in flow of the game as well, and spiritually in touch with the game as well. So in my head, it's like being on a golf course, walking around, enjoying the birds singing, the fresh air, the camaraderie, the spirit of the people that are there, because I'm not making any money at the game. That's so important to me, right? And so I want that part of the game to be at maximum flow, but I also want me mentally to be thinking about the shots and strategically going around the course the best I can, and then of course trying to hit the ball as well, strike the ball as well as I can too. So there's my analogy for golf. It's kind of a 3-part thing for me that puts me in flow for the game of golf. But I would suggest that flow is also achievable in your relationship with your spouse, the relationship with your kids, and in your business as well. So when you walk into the office each and every day, not only do you want to be able to technically handle your calls, technically handle your schedule, you want to, because those are mental things, you want to be physically there as well. And you also want to have this, again, the spiritual connection or social connection that goes beyond the physical and the mental, that really empowers the people that you're working with each and every day. So yeah, years and years ago, I started to study the concept of flow, how to get in flow, and how to move it from elite sporting events into all aspects of your life. And I think that's a great tip for people that want to produce high performance in their lives, is to try to find flow and understand how that works.
Yeah.
I think.
Go ahead, Greg.
Sorry. Great. Yeah, well said, Bob. I totally agree. This goes across, we talk about sport, but, as we know, it goes across business, family, sport, everything that you go about your life. I mean, consistency. To be a high performer, you need to be consistent. You talk about the golf analogy. If you're not consistent at golf, one day you can have a great game, the next day you can't, and you wonder what's happened. But it is I think I learned this from Tony Robbins. Repetition is the mother of all skill. That is the most important thing. If you continue to repeat and practice and learn and educate yourself and do those sorts of things on a consistent basis, you will be a high performer.
Wow, guys, this is powerful stuff. I've got a few comments on the game of golf, as you know. So I actually look at golf as, it's like I call it the game of life, because within a game of golf, there's different segments, different seasons. And as Bob just said, he used the word flow. I use momentum or tempo. Tempo is right in our swing. It's in the overall pace of the game. And each game has its own life. Some days it's just effortless. Other days it's a anger management seminar, right? But the truth is, this is life. Having to control our mindset is what you spoke about, Craig. This is the brilliant part about golf for me, is it's cheap therapy. So when I talk about mindset, it's the stuff that we've learned together, Craig, as we've traveled around the world with Tony and other types of education, Bob, that we've taken. It's about our focus. It's about our self-talk, our language, which you already spoke to, Craig. It's about our physiology and our overall persistence, all those aspects that are involved. But it really comes down to one thing: being process versus results orientated. What I'm hearing you all say is that the process, if we learn from it, and when we fail, there's no such thing as failure. It's a fantastic adventure in learning. It's not failure if you learn and grow. So this process is what I think we're going to go into in our next question, but I really felt it was important to kind of summarize what you both so eloquently said, is that our focus is, and our overall self-talk and the language we're using, and then how we control our physiology and the value we're bringing in a moment, and our response to the circumstances that are happening versus reaction, really determine the outcome and or performance, for our conversation today's sake, that happens. So yeah, I think I've said it, but that really segues into, I think for me, the priority of rituals, the processes that we put in our life, because as we all know, all of the high performers I've had the fortune to interview, they all talk about rituals, drive, results. What are the habits that we do consistently defines who we are? Not what we do once in a while, it's what we do all the time that is actually driving our results. So, how important are our daily rituals, Craig?
Thanks, Heath. Another great question, and for me, this is big. I mean, this stems back all through my childhood of obviously my football career, now into obviously business, now into family life. Like it's been across the whole journey of my life, and I'm very big on process. From the time you wake up in the morning to the time you go and meditate, down the beach, to the time obviously you go down to the coffee shop and you grab your coffee. Like everything from my point of view, that is how I function to the best of my ability, is to have my processes clear and in place. Some people call it OCD. I like to call it a process.
What's your wife call it?
OCD.
That's where that comes from. Okay.
So we all would agree that each of us has what we call the obsessive compulsive disorder. We are all obsessed with achieving the outcomes that we want. So, Bob, how important are daily rituals in your mindset?
They're exceptionally important. You need to have the self-discipline to put on a daily and weekly basis, take the right actions at the right time, for sure. One of the most important things one of the most important ritual is to set, I set daily goals, measurable goals, and weekly measurable goals, and monthly measurable goals, and quarterly measurable goals for the business, and annual measurable goals as well. So I got into that ritual really, really early in my life, in business, and then continued on setting them, of course, for the relationship with the family, relationship with the kids, financial management, et cetera, physical goals as well, right? Exercise, et cetera. So I think setting goals is really important. And what I'd like to say about that is that it's been my experience that many people do set goals, but they're not, as Craig would say, consistent enough about that. And I'd also say that they set them too low. So my experience has been that many people have goals, they can state the goals, but the goals aren't big enough. They're not dreamy enough. And my experience has been that it's okay to set a large goal. It's okay to set a huge goal. It's okay and very important actually to set an outstanding goal or goals in your life. So I remember that when I met my wife to be many years ago, she was running. She just started exercising at age 34, and she was running 2 minutes on the treadmill. So she had a goal set that she was going to exercise, and so that was her goal. It's like, get on the treadmill, run for 2 minutes, I'm done. And but through the process of us living together and sharing our lives together, she started to see the potential. And now the lady turned into a runner. She runs half marathons all over the world. She's a running miracle, right? And her goals went from very, very small to, hey, let's do a half marathon in Hawaii. And there's power in that. There's massive power in saying, I want to do something big in this area of my life. And the importance of it is if you don't set it high enough, most people, if you don't reach the goal, you're going to be significantly lower than your low bar set already. So there should be no failure in setting a really high goal and doing whatever you can to reach that goal. Especially, and Craig, I'd like to hear you talk about that, especially in the financial world, right? Most people I think what the average person has for savings is something like, in Canada, it's like at the end of their lives, they have like $60,000 or $70,000 saved, right? That's 40 years working, man. 45 years working, you got 70,000 bucks, 80,000 bucks in the bank, and it's like that goal wasn't high enough, my friend. That goal wasn't high enough.
Yeah, great comments, Bob. And I'll take you back. And Heath, you would have heard about Tony Robbins talk about this on many occasions. Your wife, I think it was your wife you were talking about, she took massive action. She got up, she got on the treadmill, she started there, and then she didn't know where it was going to take her. But then as she developed and started getting fitter and fitter and more confident with obviously her body and running, she then started setting massive goals, which is, I totally agree. If you fall short of a massive goal you've set, you've still achieved more than what you would have achieved if you set a smaller goal. So although you feel that you may have failed, you've actually achieved more than what you set out to achieve, which is the most important thing. From a finance perspective, I mean, unfortunately, we look at the numbers here in Australia, and the average Australian savings rate is 4%. The difference between what people earn and what they spend is 4%. You know, we've got the highest credit card debt in the world per capita at $52.4 billion. We're credit card junkies over here in Australia, and unfortunately, you know, people don't set, as you talk about, you know, high enough goals throughout their career financially, you know, to get themselves to a stage where they can actually live financially free come retirement. I mean, 60 grand you talk about is a lot lower. I mean, our average Australian retires on $290,000 in their superannuation account. You know, that lasts them 7 to 10 years, depending on their spending habits. So you retire at 60, you're out of money at 70, and then you're on the pension at $300 a week, you know, which is just, you're just existing. You're not living, you're not traveling, you're not doing everything you want to be doing come retirement.
Great comments, Craig. Thank you.
Well, guys, you know, I can't agree more strongly with both of your comments. So to summarize, and I'm going to share how I feel about it through this summary, is that I believe that it's critical that we have what is called a BHAG, a big, hairy, ostentatious goal. And as you just said, Craig, it's better to aim for the stars and hit the barn than aim for the barn and hit the pig pen.
That's good. That's good, my friend.
What I've learned, and Craig, you and I together, when we were in Fiji together, you know, one of the things that I think is critical for all of this is that our goal is really related to our self-belief. And our beliefs, our life condition, and our beliefs or our blueprint for our life really are key elements to whether or not we're fulfilled or unfulfilled, happy or unhappy. When our life conditions equal our blueprint or our beliefs of who we are and what we want to be, we're fulfilled. We have happiness, we have peace. When they do not equal what we believe about ourselves, we're miserable, we're unhappy, we're afraid. All these other traits happen. So what I'm really coming to back to the rituals are really driven by our outcomes that we desire. Our outcomes make us have to think and ask a really important question. Why? Why? What's the purpose I want to hit that goal? I'll share mine. So I have a goal. I want to compete at the national level as an amateur golfer. I have now been able to get to that level 3 times. I unfortunately failed to make the cut after 2 days of golf on all 3 occasions. And what happened on the last time, it hit me like a lightning bolt. I broke my process, which is really rituals. My routines, I allowed fear of what other people would think. There's a lot more pressure when you got people watching and you're around, you know, the top 156 golfers in the country for that year. So this type of stuff gets into our mindset. and it changes our behavior, tightens us up. And that doesn't have to be in athletics. We're using athletics just as an example or a story for us here. But if we're not willing to dream big enough and make a decision to take action, the massive action plan that you spoke about, Craig, then our purpose really, or our why, doesn't really get the opportunity to grow. And that then leads back to the rituals never get put into place because it takes a plan to therefore create the habits, the routines, and the rituals to achieve it. So, Bob, you started the discussion on our goals, which then has led to our why, which has led to our action plan, which is finally coming back to the answer. We must build rituals that will drive the outcome that we want. So that leads to our very last question. What are the rituals that let's share our rituals that we're doing in our life with our audience to show what we believe are key success factors. And this is not the how-to or the only way to do it. But if I might, I'll just lead since I'm kind of got the mic at the moment. I just shared with you one of my goals, and I will make it. My handicap is dropping because I've learned to follow a process better, to have belief in myself. I've created good language to myself so that I can forget my mistakes quicker and move forward faster from the lesson I learned in that. So my rituals for success based on any goals, right? But my life goals, I have 4 chunks of my life, and we won't get into all that today, but the real aspect is my rituals are early bird gets the worm. I get up and I do what I call my time, the intelligent, selfish time for me. That means I'm up usually at about 5 a.m. if I sleep in at 6, but I do my reading. I put in good because garbage in, garbage out, good in, good out. And I learn from people that are leaders and have rituals and habits and success that I want to have. It's not that difficult. We were taught in school that copying is bad. But the truth is, copying is the best form of flattery there is, and it's the fastest way for us to be successful. If you want to be a better golfer, copy a better golfer. If you want to be a better financial manager, you go to Craig and you learn from Craig. And so on it goes. Our proximity of who we surround ourselves will affect our mindset, which therefore affects how we feel about ourselves, and there our emotions drive our motion, and we drive forward on these rituals. So now I'm starting to preach, but the point is I'm very passionate about it. So from that, I start my morning and I give me my me time. For me, that's about 2 to 3 hours of education. And I take courses and I get it done in the morning because I'm alert. I'm not tired. I then am at by 9 o'clock. I've had 2 to 3 hours of great work. The science proves that my brain functions better for retention. And then I get into my work and I'm working to actually drive the business of the uncommon truth, whatever that actions might be. By about mid-afternoon, I'm not functioning well in the sense of your brain can only bear what your seat can bear. And I'm a little OCD and a little ADD and a little bit this and that. So I need to get outside and be active. And I hit the golf course. And I go play 9 holes. I practice or whatever might be happening. And I work on my athletic goals. And then I hit the gym. And then I'm spending time with my family, my friends. And I make sure that I'm in building relationships at that. And all my needs are being met by that routine. So that's mine. How about you, Craig?
Thanks, Steve. That was quite detailed. I really, really enjoy that. I actually got to see a little bit of that when I was over in Canada visiting you not too long ago. So thank you. Big believer of the morning thing for me. Like I need to be up early. I want to be up before anyone else gets up, doing the work I need to do, working on myself, like you said. So for me, getting up, straight to the beach with the dog, walk down there, clear the head, work on my breathing, meditate a little bit, just taking an hour to myself before anyone's up, just to obviously get that time. As you know, the family then kicks into gear, and your time gets exhausted quite quickly with a family these days. So for me, is getting that time, like you said, Heath, initially in the morning, but then I'm training straight away. Straight after that, I go into training. I release some endorphins, get that done in the morning, so I feel good about the day leading into it. And then from there, it's obviously business focused. Now that we've obviously got the family in place, so they normally come home from the gym, spend some time with obviously my little girls, and then basically that sort of sets the day up. And at least I've obviously spent that hour with her to ensure that we're developing her. I'm spending some of that quality time. And then obviously go into the business day. Goals are very big for me, very big. I mean, Bob talked about them a lot. I'm a big believer in goals, not just thinking about those goals, but writing them down. You need to write your goals down. That is critical to achieving any goal. If it's not written down, it's not going to happen. I can guarantee you that. Something in your head is just something in your head, but unless it's written down in front of you, or you've got a vision board, which I'm sure I can.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah.
Actually, just take a second and actually go right up to that for me, for us, and just take a second and go through that a bit, Bud, if you don't mind. What are some of the highlights there?
Yeah, so we've got we've obviously got relaxing up the top hand. A few destinations that we've always wanted to visit. Financial freedom's just ahead, so I'm always close. I'm just always getting there. A couple of my dream homes, private jet. I've done the Lamborghini. I'm a big believer in obviously setting up financial wealth for my family. So there's obviously a lot of money shots, dream cars. I'm open to receiving floods of financial abundance. So there's just a few things up there. I got that from Kerwin Ray. This is simple. This is easy. This is fun. Mm-hmm. Gratitude. So there's a few there's a few bits and pieces up there, but above my screen every single day, that's something that I can look at on a constant basis. Just putting those things into my mindset to absorb those, and hopefully they'll become achieved. It's quite interesting, actually. I was my old vision board. I think it was done on The Secret. If anyone's ever read or watched.
I just took a look at that. I've got that in my library at home.
Yeah, so The Secret. So one of the professionals in there talked about him having this house on his vision board. And then obviously him actually purchasing that house, his vision board was done 10 years ago. He was unpacking some boxes, came across his old vision board, and he was sitting in the house that he had on his vision board 10 years ago. Him not even thinking about it, but just on a daily basis, just looking at it, unconsciously. And then all of a sudden, here you are in the house that you had on your vision board, somewhat 10 years ago. So, one of those, hopefully one day will be mine.
Thank you, Craig. That is a blessing. I really appreciate it. But that's power. That has really empowered you on those days whenever there's a thought from that enemy inside that comes in that brings doubt. You're able to look up, recharge, and move forward. How about you, Bob?
Yeah, Craig, I really appreciate you spending that time with your vision board. That's a powerful ritual, is the ritual of dreaming. There's not a day goes by, and I know Heath's like this too, but he's 50 times more productive than I am in the dreams. But there's not a day go by where I don't have a unique thought about how to move my business forward, how to build a better relationship with my wife, how to whatever it is. And that's because part of my ritual is getting on my mountain bike. I live at one of those mountains in the background there, just around the corner, Craig. So I've got a mountain bike. I'm hiking in the mountains, and that's a beautiful time to reimagine your day, reimagine your week, and actually plan out actions to take. One of the things that, very small thing, but it's been very powerful in our house, is I took over many years ago the cooking in the house, because my wife is a high achiever, and she would come home late at night. And on her days to cook, Craig, she would look in the fridge at 8:30 at night and go, I wonder what's in here that we can cook up. And I would say, okay, maybe you won't be doing the cooking in the house. So I took over that, and I become kind of a minor chef, sort of like where Heath hits a really good golf ball. I know my way around the kitchen. But that's been a powerful recreational, but also a powerful family building tool for me, is to have put on supper every night and have the family sit around the table, and we do this, right? The TV's not on. We're sitting around the table and we discuss our days, and everybody has to tell. It's on one of my trips on my bike, I came up with, everyone's going to have to start telling stories about what happened to them during the day. And so that's what we do as a ritual around our family table, is people talk about what they're doing in school, what they're doing with their friends, who their enemies are at school, right? When the kids are growing up, I would invent these really weird questions, like, and ask questions at the table, and everybody got into that, and relationships were built around food in our house, still are to this day, even though we're pretty well alone now, just myself and my wife. So I would say that the ritual of vision building, the ritual of dreaming, is maybe one of the most powerful things we can do. And bully for you, my friend, in Australia, to bring it up.
Yeah.
Nicely done.
Thanks, Bob. And I'm a huge believer. Heath, you know this, but I'm a big believer on thoughts become things.
So true. So true.
Well, gentlemen, I'm blown away by our discussion today. I'm going to take a crack at summarizing,
Good luck.
finding what we call the uncommon truth from our discussion about high performance. So the key character traits that we need to work on developing: courage. Do not fear failure. It's just a fantastic adventure in learning. If you're not failing, you're not learning. Move forward. Be courageous, determined, and persistent. And with those three character traits, you add self-discipline in. Those are the things that are going to help you through all the adversarial circumstances that will come the minute you set a dream in place. So then that leads us to the four real critical aspects. One, we need to set a big, hairy, ostentatious goal. We need to dream big. Create that vision board for our life. What is our ideal form of life? Then we need to document our goals and why we're doing what we're doing. What is our purpose? That will then create that map, that massive action plan, Craig, that you spoke about. And from that massive action plan, with clearly defined goals and outcomes that we're trying to achieve, and timelines, and what actions we need to do to achieve them, we create the rituals for results, a process. That process will actually bring and drive the results that we're going to desire, because we're thinking it. First, it comes from our thoughts. It then goes into our self-talk and our language, and then it comes out in a physical way. Or another way of saying it, it starts in our head, it moves to our heart, and then it moves into our hands to actually do the work. So ultimately, we need to just keep moving forward. That's the key to high performance. As Les Brown says it, when you fall down, fall on your back so you can get back up fast. So with that being said, guys, I can't thank you enough. I really thank all of you for watching today, The Uncommon Truth with Criag Parry. And I just look forward to us having another chance in the future of continuing our discussions on high performance and the other things about life, and really in our pursuit of living our ideal form of life. So thank you, gentlemen, for joining me today. And as we ask the questions, seek the truth, and ultimately strive to find the uncommon truth in our journey. Thanks.
Thanks, Heath, and thanks also, Bob, for sharing your insights as well. It's been a pleasure to be on and have a chat with you.
Thanks,
Very nice meeting you, Craig.